my North Star moved into the scouting realm. It wasn't to be a GM quite yet. I don't even know if I knew what that was at the time and what the duties of that job were. And then it was really cool coming into this office. This feels right. But while you're going through that process and you're asking for people's opinions, you're starting to evaluate your personnel group and who's gonna match the culture and the philosophy that you're bringing. So I want candid conversations. I want people to get on the table, be convicted about what they believe in. And even if I think one way, I want to see you push against me and convince me that maybe I should be seeing something a little bit differently. And you're starting to see who's comfortable with doing that and who's not. You quickly realize culture's people. So you better be very selective with the type of people. You got to have a standard of what they're about. And if you stick to that, it's amazing what the locker room turns into in 2 to 3 years. We create this Grizzly model. So it's grit, dependability, coachability, and passion for the game. We want guys that are a 6 and above in all of those spaces. That's how we hire on the other side as well. So that's all the way through coaching, front office, players, and our business staff as well.
Hi, I'm Chad Biagini, your host of the Excellent Leadership Podcast. I'm joined by my colleague, Mark Mayleben, and co-host, and Ryan Poles, general manager of the Chicago Bears. Ryan, awesome to have you with us today.
Thank you. Excited to be here.
And thanks for inviting us into your incredible office.
Absolutely.
Tell us your story. How did you get to where you are today? Take us to the beginning. I'd love to hear that.
Yeah. Beginning of football, really just I grew up in a football family. My dad played at Boston College. He was with the Baltimore Colts, Seattle Seahawks for a very short time. My uncle played at University of Tennessee. He got drafted to the Chargers. It just was kind of the way of life. Football was the thing that we did as a family. And so I got the bug early, but I couldn't play. I was actually too big to play like Pop Warner football. So, when you talk about kind of sacrifices for family members and friends that kind of helps you get to where you are, my mom had to drive me, 45 minutes to an hour to a different town to even start playing football.
Really?
Yeah. So that's kind of where it kicked off. Had a great high school career.
But before you even get to high school.
Yeah.
So it's almost like a rite of passage. If dad and uncle played, you're expected to pursue this at a high level.
Absolutely.
You doing 2-3 practices a day, or was there more balance than that? What did it even look like as a kid?
No, it was intense. There's a lot of work in the backyard. There was workouts. He brought us to the track. We'd have to, run 400s, like old school training. Yeah. So, it wasn't even really a choice. It's not a choice, but it was just life. Like, it was just what you did.
But was he saying, Ryan, I want you to follow my steps? Or did you just have that ingrained passion for, I enjoy this, I want it to be my path?
It was ingrained in us early on. And it was natural, which was really good. So I ended up having a good high school career, parade All-American with like Vince Young and Reggie Bush. And,
wow.
5-star recruit, which was great. So I got recruited all over. So went on a tour, did a bunch of visits, and ended up believing and feeling that Boston College was the right place for me. Thankfully, I had, a father and uncles that had gone through the process, and it was like, where you decide to go, I want you to think about, like, if football were to be gone, would you be happy there? Would you be happy with that degree? In that location. So that was kind of the lens that I had, looking at different schools, which was from Boston College to Tennessee to Georgia, Ohio State, Notre Dame. A lot of them kind of were like, are you serious? You're not going to come here? You're going to go to BC? And it felt right. And I've always been a person that I collect information, but I have a gut feeling that usually kind of swings one way or the other, and I follow it. So it was a great decision, great 5 years at BC. Played with some unbelievable teammates like Matt Ryan, was in that wedding.
Yeah.
One of my best friends. He's actually coming to training camp in a couple of days. So it was great to, see his growth and development and become what he did. And then I had the opportunity going into my 5th year to get drafted. But unfortunately, I ruptured my Achilles at Notre Dame in late October, which was a bummer. So it was one of those kind of moments of adversity, how you're going to handle it. So I attacked rehab hard. Went down to Georgia for a little bit, rehabbed, getting ready for pro days. I was able to do pro day just after a few months of tearing my Achilles.
Wow.
And then put myself in a position to come here to Chicago and be undrafted free agent, which is wild to think about now. Kind of, I've been cut, and I've practiced here, and I've been cut in the same building that I work in now. So that was a really good journey. So after I got,
you never could have imagined at that time that you got cut.
Yeah.
That you'd be sitting in this seat. That wouldn't have gone through your mind at that moment in time. But can you even just stop there? So you get cut. Mm-hmm. That was your dream at that point.
Yeah.
A lot of people would have been defeated. Mm-hmm. Maybe felt more like a victim, right? Instead of like owning and saying, I'm going to pivot. What went through your mind in that moment? How did you transition and pursue something else?
Yeah. So again, thankfully, having really, I got to give a lot of credit to my dad, is like always having like the next thing, what's plan B, plan C kind of laid out. So I knew that at some point it would come to an end. I was hoping it wasn't going to be that quick. But I had to shift into, what do you want to do next? And I always had a love for football, and I wanted to be in sports. That was a big deal. I also had a little bit of like, I want to get into marketing as well. So that's kind of where my mind went. It's like, all right, if this chapter's done, are we going to stay with football? Or are we going to get into marketing, get into the business side of things? And then that's where it kind of got interesting. I went to Vermont, where my wife was at. In between, I put my resume out there for some jobs to get into marketing and advertising. And I got a call from a buddy that said, hey, you want to go to Alaska just to get away? And I was in that moment too, because again, you fell short of a goal, and really the first time I've fallen short of anything that I put my mind to.
Did you feel defeated in that moment, or optimistic about what's ahead? Or both?
A little bit of both.
Yeah.
A little bit of both, yeah. A location just to create some clarity to kind of go through all of these things. So went to Alaska for a week. It was incredible. I've never been to a more peaceful place in my entire life. It's quiet. There's no traffic. There's no people. There's no planes. Helped my buddy, shut down a camp, like a fishing camp for the winter. And that's where I just had a lot of time to reflect on what was next. Ironically, as soon as I land back in Vermont, I get a call from a buddy, said, hey, I'm leaving BC to go be a scout with the Titans. Would you want to come and take my job at BC? And I was like, I'm on my way. So there's just a door open for me as soon as I got back. So I jumped into that, and that's when I started meeting scouts that would come in and start asking about players. I'm like, this would be a really good opportunity for me to get into the NFL and maybe someday be a general manager. I also learned about the office life. I tell the story where you would have to put these packets together for recruiting. And, the copiers didn't have the stapler like built into them, so you had to do it by hand. I ripped off like 100 of them, went, worked out, came back, and our boss at the time, the recruiting coordinator, had circled in red pen all of the staples that I had done, which half of them were like halfway in the page, some were, parallel with the top, some were diagonal, just like a mess of just like stapling as fast as I could. And he was like, you have to be detailed in whatever you do. And this is an opportunity for, it seems small, but it's a reflection on the work that you're doing. And that always has stayed in my mind, just in terms of everything that you do reflects on your character, your values, your detail, and how much you care about doing that task at the best of your ability. So just really learning the office life was that was a big opportunity for me to do that. And then I got the call after that for interviews for a couple NFL teams. It was started at 1, then it was 2, then it ended up being like 4 different spots. And this is just for scouting assistant position, which is basically like a seasonal internship.
Yeah.
Were you being outbound putting your name out there, or were you just getting attention based off what you were doing at BC?
Yeah, I think it was just, I had a good reputation because the scouts would come in and I was organized, communicated well, really helped them in their information gathering process of the different players that we had at BC at the time.
That's cool.
Yep.
Now, back then, when you came back from Alaska and you get the job at BC, is your brain immediately saying, okay, my ultimate goal is to be a GM or a head coach, and this is the path that gets me there? Or are you just saying, hey, this gets me back in football, I'm going to do the best at what I can, and we'll see where it takes us?
Yeah, definitely my North Star moved into the scouting realm. It wasn't to be a GM quite yet. I don't even know if I knew what that was at the time and what the duties of that job were. It was more of, I can go on the road. I can talk to different schools and see, does this player fit who we are, what scheme we run, those types of things. So it started to take shape, but really it was just kind of, let's go scout and try to bring good football players to the team.
Wow. So 4 teams start pursuing you. How did you end up in Kansas City?
Yeah, so I had a really good relationship with Scott Pioli, who was with the Patriots. It was really intriguing that he had won so many Super Bowls, had gone through a lot with the different quarterback situations, and being at Boston College, like, you were living in like a really cool time where they were a dominant team in the NFL. So I knew like that's the path that I wanted to go with, someone that had created success before. And that's why I felt like Kansas City was like the right place for me.
So Ryan, in our day job, we get to watch and follow a lot of career stories. And I'm always more impressed when I see people have been promoted numerous times internally.
Yep.
Because you can be assured that they've performed well in their job and people like working with them.
Yep.
Sometimes you see stories where all the promotions were external, and external promotions usually have to happen. But when they're all external, you sometimes wonder if the person's just a really effective interviewer.
Right.
And you want to see those internal promotions. You've got, 4 or 5 promotions over your time with the Chiefs under 3 different GMs. So you had Scott, you had, who else? You had John, you had Brett, right? So how did you do that? How did you perform under numerous GMs, continue hitting standards, differentiate yourself from what would have been a competitive talent pool within the Chiefs organization?
2 things come to mind. One's just work ethic, just putting in the time and getting things done. The other one is, and it's one that I look for now when hiring, it's adaptability. Some people really struggle with change in philosophy, and I had the opportunity to either put my heels in and say, I only know one way and I can't adapt to this new way of thinking, or I can have an open mind and say, there's an opportunity to learn a different way of doing the same job. And that's what I did. I also think probably the third thing is just dependability. I try to be as dependable as possible. I really believe those 3 things, if you lean into that, it allows you to grow with the organization, and it allows your boss and the people around you to continue to give you more things to do, and that's where growth comes from. That's one of the things Scott Pioli taught me. He's like, you'll earn more work. And I didn't know what that meant like immediately, but it was like, oh, okay, like I'm going to do this job really well, and he notices it, and he's going to say, hey, I want you to take this project on. And then that's another opportunity to shine. And, that's where I felt like I turned into almost like a snowplow over my career, because I kept getting more and more, and it really tested my capacity to do a lot of different things, which, when you fast forward to this job, like, that's what it is. I mean, you're constantly juggling a lot of different tasks at once, and you got to stay organized, you got to delegate, but you got to kind of be able to work in all these different buckets.
How do you assess for adaptability when you're hiring or signing an athlete?
It's odd, because it comes back to where you started that question. I want to see someone that's worked in different philosophies. And then I'll ask, again, from my own experience, what did you like, what didn't you like about that? And you can see people kind of grab the good and toss the bad, and they learn from that. And they can grab all these cool things, and they've compiled a really cool, like, their own philosophy on how to do something. And then, when I think about coaching interviews, give me a situation where what you planned for, it didn't happen, and you had to suddenly shift. Like, what was your plan? How did you execute? How did you get everyone to buy into that adjustment? And you learn a lot from people that had to do that. Again, I really want to know philosophically, like, I want to see shifts, and then you build your own process. And that's what happens, like, in this job on a daily basis. Like, something happens, you got to be able to pivot and move, and then you got to get everybody on board with that change as well.
Were there any standout moments at the Chiefs where, you were doing excellent at your work day in and day out, but was there a standout moment or thing you did that really catapulted you into, I guess, the frame of mind that Ryan's going to be something special here?
Some of the transition periods, really going from like Scott Pioli's philosophy to John Dorsey's philosophy, was probably the big change because, I mean, it turned it on its head. It was very compartmentalized, do your job. We all heard that, to more collaborative, everybody in the room. And we're gonna talk this out as a huge group, which is challenging. But that shift forced me. I was in the coordinator position, and it really forced me to change the way that I thought. The tasks were different. Some things I didn't quite agree with, and now you have to think about, okay, step one, I'm gonna do what I'm told. When I build that trust and that equity, now I'm gonna say, hey, I think we can do this better. So it just created some cool opportunities where I had to do some things I didn't want to do. It didn't make sense. It was clunky. And then it also started making me think, hey, I think we can do this better. And then that conversation with a new boss is challenging as well, because they just want it done this way. But let me show you that we can do this a little bit differently, and it can make your life better as a decision maker. So that transition was hard, but it paid off big time.
Were there any key players perhaps that you really fought for that maybe early on people were like, I don't know, Ryan, but they wanted you to voice your opinion and do so strongly, and you essentially fought for that person, and it turned out to be a good decision?
Yeah, the one that stands out was probably Mitch Morse. He was actually a left tackle at Missouri. We projected him to play center. But he had some rough games his senior year versus talented pass rushers at tackle. So it was a projection. There's some good and bad that you had to work through. There's some old tape, some freshman tape of him playing center. So you had some examples of him doing what you think he can do, but it's just not at a high level because he was so young. And having to get on the table and be convicted about that as a guy that can help you. We ended up drafting him, had a great career with us, and then went to the Bills and had a really good career. I think at one point he was the highest paid center. So that was just like the one that kind of comes to my mind where I had to fight for it because there was kind of a split room.
2020 comes along. Mm-hmm. Most people remember it for COVID. Yeah. You remember it for winning Super Bowls. Yeah. Or a Super Bowl. Yep. What made that was your first Super Bowl. You're going to win a few here, we know. Yeah. But what made that team so special? Like looking back, you say, wow, the culture that we had built or the values that we stood on got us to that elite level that now you're coming to apply here, maybe in a slightly different way, but the values are the same. Yeah, there was a level of maturity from that team that was incredible. But I really I'll lean into Andy Reid. It's something that I took from him, just kind of watching him move. You know, when the seas got rough, his leadership was so poised and so stable. It was never up and down. And there's times you wanted to panic where things weren't going well, and you kind of look down the hallway, and his movements were the same as they always were, whether you won or you're lost. I bring that to my own leadership and just trying to stay stable through the high and the low, because I really think you affect the entire organization with how you move as a leader. And then when you look at that push through the playoffs, we were down multiple touchdowns every single game in the playoffs, and we overcame it. So you didn't see a panic. You didn't see finger pointing. There was always belief that we could come back and win those games, and we did every single time. So the resilience piece was something that I took from that run that I make sure with the people that we hire, the players that we draft, that we sign, that resilience is something that we talk about a lot in building this team and this culture. At what point there at the Chiefs did you start, back to my earlier question of when did you start getting maybe greater ambition to be a leader of a football operation organization? Probably when I got promoted to college director. You had to come up with systems just to make sure that college side of things was running smooth. And I believe the lifeblood of any roster is the draft. So once I started doing really well in that area and creating a process and becoming efficient and communicating, I was like, you know what, I know that I'm probably a year or two away from this, but I need to start developing those skill sets that are going to allow me to one day be a general manager. So that was a big deal, making that jump and getting into a leadership position where
you're the youngest one in the room.
Yeah.
But you're having a positive effect on the whole group, regardless of experience.
Business executives have it a little bit easier. They interview for jobs and the whole world doesn't know they interviewed for a job.
Yeah.
Football's harder. You interview for jobs and somebody reports that you interviewed for a job. So you interviewed for a few GM jobs before getting this one.
Yep.
How did you prepare differently, if at all, to land this one? What made this one the one to say, hey, I'm all in, I'm moving forward with that?
Yeah, one of the hardest moments I had was not getting the Carolina job. That was my first interview, and I thought I did really well. I prepared really well. I was, you kind of feel in the zone when you go through the interview process. It started with Zoom, and then it was in person. It's not talked about much, but you come up with this philosophy based on your experience, and you share how you want to go about changing this organization and putting them in a really good position. And when you don't get the job, you go back to your old job. You've already mentally put yourself in a leadership position, especially in the GM job. And then you have to go back to the old philosophy where you basically were like, all right, I took these good things from what we do now. I don't like these things, so I'm going to toss that out. But you got to go live in that, and you got to be supportive to your group. It was the first time I felt like mental health, disappointment, frustration. Like I had a lot of that when I returned back to Kansas City, and it was eye-opening. And it allowed me to start to put structure together, an executive coach, clinician, to tap into to express some of these feelings that I was going through. Because I didn't feel like I was a great teammate to my group when I got back. I was more angry and frustrated because, I had this great plan and now I don't get to do it. The other thing is my agent challenged me to say, hey, where are your blind spots? So you look at your interview and you obviously didn't know everything. The things that you felt short on, let's go attack those. It just, the personal growth and development process kicked off, and it was always there, but it took another step for me where I have to go find answers and things that maybe I don't have in Kansas City, and that didn't allow me to have the answers to those questions. I got to go out and figure those things out. So from a performance standpoint, from analytics standpoint, I got to go seek that information so that I have answers and I can put a team together when I have the opportunity to have the job.
How did you discover your blind spots, or did you already know? Because some people are unaware of where their gap areas are. Mm-hmm. You discovered them. So how? And then you said, okay, I'm going to take ownership of this myself. You didn't wait for HR to come to you and say, Correct. We're going to hire an executive coaching program. You did it. Yeah.
Yep. I really just took time to kind of meditate and think back on the interview process to where I just didn't feel like I answered the questions comfortably. And really those two spots were the performance side of things, sports science, and also the analytics part of it. So put a plan together in the off season, went, saw my buddy in the Yankees and spent time with them and got to know their performance team, asked a lot of questions. How did they set up their group? What things were they looking on in terms of innovation? Where were they going next with it? And the same with analytics. Now it's different in baseball, just the whole structure of it, but you could start putting a plan together from there and understand where you came up short. And then you go to the places like the combine and you get to meet different people that you can put enough information to get started, and you keep meeting more and more people along the way that that you could potentially tap into when you get that position. So when I actually got this job, there's a lot of people that reached out to help put our performance team together and our analytics team together, which has been really, really effective here.
You brought up the first time where you really acknowledged mental health. Mm-hmm. And a lot of us as executives, we're expected to project confidently. We should be self-confident, right. But there are still insecurities. There's still doubts. There's still times where our mind is not where our body is.
Yes.
And this has been a passionate topic for you. You've talked about it before of just working with coaches or working with psychologists. Can you elaborate more? Yeah. And what advice would you give to other senior executives who might not even recognize that they're dealing with mental performance not being at its peak?
Yeah, I think one is going to allow you to move and think clearly. Because if you're holding onto these different emotions that come with this job, frustration. You mentioned insecurity, because things are going to go well some days and they're going to go really bad other days. And the one thing I'll say is when you get to the kind of the pinnacle of these jobs, there's not a lot of people you can talk to. You're not going to go share all of, your hardships with your staff. And a lot of times you want to go home to your family and enjoy your family and not jump right back into work. Having a clinician and an executive coach has really helped me really just share some of the feelings, because I may not be completely in tune with why I feel the way that I do. So to be able to share those and to have someone ask questions back and kind of dig deeper creates a lot of clarity for me. I feel better. I feel like I lead better. I have better energy. And sometimes those conversations are all positive. Everything's great. Not sure why we need to meet. And the next thing you know, you're jumping into something where you're like, man, I need to work on that, or I need to be aware of that. So having that and kind of getting into a weekly or bi-weekly cadence has been really, really important to me. And I've shared that with my group because I think everybody would benefit from that.
And outside those sessions with the coaches or psychologists, what are you doing to supplement your learning through books or podcasts or conferences or summits? How do those things play into your development as well?
Yeah, it gives you different tools to tap into. I'm a cold plunge guy now. Like, I know it's kind of a...
What temperature?
49 degrees.
49, I love that.
Yeah, so I got the plunge in the basement at home.
Wow.
And then I have the one here in the facility with, I think this one's about 52, 53.
Every day of the week, 3 days a week?
I like to get 3 to 4 days a week.
Wow.
I just feel better. And that's just something, I read, and, it's on every podcast.
Yeah.
But it really has helped me, especially starting the days. Yeah.
When we're in Dallas and I need to get a real cold plunge, I just have a pool that turns cold enough to cold plunge for 3 months out of the year.
Yeah.
And especially like gray sky days.
Yeah.
If you're sitting at a desk and you feel like you've lost your energy, your momentum, you feel a little down. 3-4 minutes in cold water, you're a different person.
Oh, absolutely.
Just entirely different mindset. You can't think about anything that was putting you down.
Exactly. Yeah.
You're just thinking about breathing, working through the pain.
It's funny, my EA, Colleen, like, she can tell the difference if I've done it or not, or if I'm working out or if I'm not, like, just with the energy and the way that I'm moving and communicating.
Wow, so it helps you that much.
Yeah.
Wow.
Big time.
And any favorite books that have made a huge impact or podcasts you listen to?
Clear Thinking by Shane Parrish is probably the one that I've read recently that's been really good about just kind of being intentional with the way that we move and that we think. Both and Thinking is another one. In terms of problem solving, it's a lot of times it's either or, but just finding ways where you can accomplish multiple things, it has been big, because I'm always working on, is this good for us short term or is it long term? And you're kind of trying to marry the two and thread the needle to be able to do both. Sometimes you can do it, sometimes you can't. The other one is constantly worried about, the individual player or the team, because that move is going to impact the locker room. So are you doing something that's going to reflect how you want things done in the future? Or is this a one-off for this one player, and now everyone's saying, like, why can't I get what he got? So that's been big. It's allowed me to dig a little bit deeper in the problem-solving side of things, to really find solutions for the issues, if it's for the roster or if it's, something with the locker room, or trying to just make sure our standard is our standard and we're staying to that level.
How do you find time to, you're excelling at your job, putting your heart and your head into it. How do you find time to keep growing, spend time reading books, listening to podcasts, taking care of yourself, feed yourself before you can feed others, as they say, right?
Yeah. I had this conversation the other day. I think sometimes, like, we bring up like imposter syndrome. I think it's been positive for me because I never feel like I'm there or good enough. I have to, like, speed up. And I just have found over the last 4 or 5 years, there's these opportunities, if it's reading, meeting people, that can allow you to gain wisdom to continue to improve, not only as an individual, but our entire group. So that's been very impactful for me is just continue to learn, continue to push. I think in football, we have this break that we take after the draft. And a lot of times you would decompress the whole time. That's important. But I also feel like there's time in there where you can steal knowledge from different spaces, if that's from a different sport, different business. So I try to extend myself a little bit in that time to learn and grow.
And is it something where you will block off a portion of your week for development, or is it a daily thing you just get into the habit of doing?
I try to make it part of the week.
Okay.
I try to come up here and do a little bit of reading in the morning. I've done a pretty good job.
How early are you to the office?
Yeah, so I wake up, I like getting up around 5:30. I've noticed that if I can get in here before 6, it's quiet.
It's just you and Kevin Warren in the gym, right?
Yeah. I get work done. Not a lot of knocks on the door. And it's a good time just kind of have your own time to think, reflect, read. Sometimes it's getting a workout. Sometimes it's just sitting here and having kind of quiet time to look at my calendar and just get ready for the day. If I don't get that done, it feels like someone hits fast forward on the day. You walk in here at 8:30, and then it's like all of a sudden it's 5. Yeah. Because you've kind of been pulled in so many different directions.
Right.
Yeah.
So you don't get the Carolina job. You hire an executive coach, psychologist. You're reading books, listening to podcasts. What? Tell us about the call you got to interview here. Where are you? And is it elation? Like, I got another chance, or walk us through that.
Yeah, it came in waves after the Carolina interview. We wrapped back around that season. We actually play in that crazy Buffalo game in Kansas City that went back and forth like the last 30 seconds. That's how that season ended, and it kind of came in waves. I had the Giants, I had the Vikings, and the Bears were last to call to get into the interview process. I was excited. I felt like there was a really good opportunity for me to get one of these jobs. I thought it was really cool to come full circle and be back in Chicago in this building and try to get it right. I tell you, the interview process was so much smoother and less stressful. I was prepared not only with the materials and the plan, but I was prepared emotionally and mentally, where it was almost like I'm going to present who I am, what I know. And if that connects with you, then great. If not, then we'll keep it moving. And I felt like I had the right mindset going into that process.
And to prepare for the interview itself, are you rehearsing with your wife? I think I saw an interview recently. The Republican National Convention just happened. DNC's next week in Chicago. And I think J.D. Vance, his wife, was like, yeah, it was just me and him. He was practicing in front of me, in front of the mirror. Yeah. I was giving him, walk us through the actual preparation of that interview behind the scenes. Yeah,
it's a little bit of everything. I definitely did that with my family, just kind of going over my background, going through grade scale, like how we're going to grade our players, culture, what we look for to creating a specific type of culture. So I did that with family. I had an executive coach at the time that went through just the communication piece of it with me. The one thing I was challenged that really resonated with me, and I share with my assistant GM, we both kind of have like very serious faces. So it was like, let your light shine. So when you speak through, if it's a Zoom call or in person, like let them see your emotions, let them see your passion about the job. So I have to be reminded a lot to smile and enjoy the process and not be so like focused where it looks like I'm like trying really, really hard. So I had that process. And then my agent, did a really good job preparing me and just coming up with these hypothetical questions to prepare for.
You bring up a good point, because I tend to find a lot of us are much more dynamic in person than over video or over the phone. And even when prepping executives for interviews, I will often tell them that, like, show more confidence. Mm-hmm. Rarely do I get a call saying that person came across egomaniacal, right. But I will sometimes get a call saying, hey, maybe they're too timid, or they're not ready for this moment, because they were humble, and humble came across potentially as weak over phone or over video. Yep. But then similarly, like, the energy's stolen, especially on video. Correct. A video, It's awkward. It's clumsy. We're not really looking in each other's eyes perfectly. You might have a thumbnail of yourself there too, so you're semi-distracted. And it robs the natural communication and cadence and energy.
Correct.
So it's just a tip, but a reminder. Smile.
Yeah.
Use your hands.
Yep.
And make bright eyes and let your light shine.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love that.
Now, you probably had several rounds of interview before they invited you here on campus, right?
Yeah.
So what was it like when you keep progressing? You're coming back here how many years later from training camp when you were a walk-on, they say in college, obviously. But yeah, all those years later, you're here on camp. It's obviously a different place now than when you were. But walk us through that experience. You show up and
it was a different experience. So, man, it tells you a lot about this building here, but George McCaskey picks me up from the airport. Amazing. So that's like a unique, usually it's just a car service, and I got a text that says, do you mind if I pick you up? And I'm like, absolutely, let's do it. So he was at the baggage claim and walked to his car in the garage, and we had a ride back to Lake Forest, and great conversation. You just understood what the history of this organization means to him. You understood what the challenge was, like in terms of getting the organization to championship level. And then like as we're pulling up to the hotel, which is right down the street, he's like, do you want to see the building? And like just excited. I'm like, yeah, let's do it. So we get here, and this place, like when you pull up to it at night, it's like glowing, and I'm like, this is a new place, because I was just thinking about the old building when I was playing here. It was just white center blocks and really not much going on, and it was dated. And we walked around, and you understood like there was an investment made to get this place in this organization and these players to where they need to be. It wasn't going to be a place where you were hurting for resources to really achieve your goals. Like they were all in, and you felt that. And then it was really cool coming into this office and seeing an empty office. And now I'm like starting to put myself here in that chair. And I knew it was just a really cool opportunity, and just being a historical franchise, it was like, this feels right. And like I said, I've always been kind of a gut feeling person. Even I chose Boston College over some schools that many people were like, why would you choose that? Like something felt right about that moment and being in this building. And I didn't know how the next day was going to play out in the interview process, but it just felt right. And I had a lot of confidence going into that interview, feeling like I was the right person for this job.
When you left that series of interviews, do you call your wife and say, I think I want it? Like and that's always a nervous thing to do, right? Because you're exposing yourself, because you could, you think you get a perfect score in the SAT, and you bomb it, and you're like, what? But no, what were you thinking and sharing with your family and friends?
Yeah, I really had no doubt when I left the room. I was told just to go in one of the waiting rooms and hang out there. And I called my wife. I'm like, this feels right. Like it has to be, you know, the one. Called my agent, said the same thing. And then sure enough, they called me back in and offered me the job. And
the same day?
Yeah. Wow. Yeah, I never left. Never left.
No way.
Yep. And again, someone hit the fast forward button. It's like, boom, like you're just off running. And
holy.
Yeah, you got your email set up. And
I'm
your
sure
phone.
You're in that moment. You're like, okay, I got to play a cool poker face. But inside, the little kid in you that achieved one of your dreams must just be soaring. How cool, man.
Yeah, it was incredible. But again, it was more of like, all right, let's go to work.
Yeah.
It really, there was no time. I didn't even want time to celebrate. Like I just wanted to go to work. I wanted to get the right people in, figure out where we were in terms of our process, because everything had kind of usually, you know, your college staff is already kicked off with the draft prep, and your pro with free agency. So you got to figure out how are they doing things? What do we need to change? What do I have time to change? So it was let's go right now. Yeah.
That's amazing, man. Congrats. What do you have, like a first 90 to 120 days playbook? I mean, it may have adapted a little bit from what you set going into it, but walk us through first 90, 120 days.
Yeah, it was it was a blur.
Whirlwind.
Yeah, it was. But I knew I had to build relationships in the building. I wanted to spend time with not only the new members of the scouting staff that were currently here, but also on the business side, and just get a lay of the land and understand where everybody was. And then I had to get my right-hand man in, which was Ian Cunningham, who I think the world of. And I will say I felt so uneasy until I had him. It took a couple of weeks to get him in the building because he needed a partner to link up with, because you're trying to figure out the staff and you're trying to figure out, what moves. You kind of have a list of things to get done in 100 days, but it's so much to do for one person. You need someone to really lean on to kick off a different process while you do something else. I had to hire a coach, and that process was intense. And there's a lot of pressure there to hire the right person. And you don't have a ton of time to go grab all your notes and get ready. Like, you hit the ground running. So you're trying to find the right person that had the right intangibles, philosophy, especially for this city and what we had to go through to get this up and running.
So you're hiring a coach at the same time as onboarding yourself into a new market, in a new role. One thing every leader faces when taking a job is figuring out whether they have the right people already on the bus, whether they're in the right roles, or whether they need to bring on new people. How did you sit down and evaluate, hey, I might have some great people just in the wrong roles, or they might have had the wrong resources before, or do you even have time to do that because you're sprinting 100 miles an hour day one?
Yeah, you're sprinting 100 miles per hour, but you have to have awareness of all those things and be able to multitask. For example, we're jumping right into free agency, and we're going through that process. You're asking everyone to partially adapt to you, but you don't have enough time to really tear this thing down and have it exactly. So you're trying to find, again, that both and, like, you're trying to find that sweet spot to get the job done. It's leaning towards your philosophy so you're comfortable, you understand what's going on. But also you're not asking your IT group to, reshape everything at the moment. So you kind of have to live in both worlds. But while you're going through that process and you're asking for people's opinions, you're starting to evaluate your personnel group and who's gonna match the culture and the philosophy that you're bringing. So we're a collaborative group. I want candid conversations. I want people to get on the table, be convicted about what they believe in, and even if I think one way, I want to see you push against me and convince me that maybe I should be seeing something a little bit differently. And you're starting to see who's comfortable with doing that and who's not. You try to model that behavior yourself. I know Ian and I would have some arguments about the value of a certain player, and we'd have some heated, the arguments were intense, respectful, but intense. You wanted to see other people kind of jump into that same deal. So you're kind of, I don't want to say eliminating people, but who's going to be in that and who's not going to be, and who's not bought in. You can feel that in the room. You can feel, closed doors of people like that are trying to get out because they know it's not a good fit. And also there's a skill set. Jeff King, who's our senior director of player personnel, was in the room. He was authentic. He jumped in, gave his opinion. He knew his stuff. He was sharp. I got a call and was like, hey, can I hire Jeff King? And I'm like, absolutely not. This guy's going to be a stud for me. And he's one of our best scouts on staff. And I think because I had gone through that, there's good people in every building. You just have to identify the ones that are going to fit what you're trying to do.
As a general manager, retaining high performers, but also removing employees who aren't going to fit this next cycle is really important. How do you balance making all of this change while also keeping psychological safety with your core for them not to think they're next on the block? Because all the data show psychological safety makes us enjoy work more. We perform better. Innovation goes a lot higher. You need that there.
Right.
But you also need to make changes. How did you do that?
Yeah, it's definitely a challenge. But I'll go back to modeling that behavior. So if someone that you brought in or one of the other executives are in there and you can have those debates that get intense, and that's what you're telling you want everyone to do, you're opening that door to say, hey, we can have these hard conversations, especially as a general manager. And I I'm not going to take it personal. So we had those arguments, and then we go to the next player and be like, oh, I love this guy. And then the same guy you're arguing would be like, I love that guy too. And you're like, all right, we're on the same page here. Let's go. So for them to see there to be some conflict and candid conversations, and then not to take it personal and go to the next thing, like that shows like we can have those conversations, but no one's going to take it personal. I mean, it's going to be respectful, but we can express our feelings, and that's what this general manager wants us to do. So again, I really think it's if you're doing it, you're showing everybody that that's allowed in this space. And I think it's very important to set the tone at the very beginning to say, hey, this is how we're going to operate. This is what I need everyone to do. I need you to be convicted, and I'm good with that.
So on that point, when you arrive, do you formally lay out your kind of values and here's my playbook, here's what we're going to stand for, here's my expectations? Is it in a very formal like culture playbook or something like that where people can hold on to and take back to their desk, or is it more of a I'm going to model you what I expect and you'll figure it out, or is it both?
Yeah, so it's definitely presented to the group, and then it's modeled. I'll go back to things are happening so fast to put a playbook together really wasn't in the cards just because there was so much to do in a short period of time. So trying to be very clear on what the expectations were, and then modeling that and trying to use examples to show and really love up those examples of those people that were doing exactly the way that we were looking for. But it's very difficult in the very beginning to really get all of this, on a playbook or in a manual, just because you're against the clock trying to get free agency set up and trying to get ready for the draft.
Yeah, I can't imagine the amount of pressure that's on you just to do the job, much less build an organization. Yep. Just for context, I don't think everyone in the audience would know, like, how big is your staff on the football side?
Yeah, so the scouting department is about 25 people, but then under my umbrella is also the performance team, which is another 8. Video, you got 6 people there. Athletic training is 6, and we have an analytics group, and then you got the coaches. Yeah. So it just goes. It's a big group that you're responsible for. So I had to come up with this like sheet where every department kind of had a square, and I'd have to put the to-do list and notes for everything that was going on to stay organized. I just had to see it that way, or else you kind of have blind spots where you kind of forget about different things. So I had to create a system pretty quick to make sure I was tapped in to everything that was going on. And that's extremely difficult, especially early on, because I wasn't at the stage yet where I felt like I could delegate. And that was a big learning lesson for me, because I had to get people in place that I could feel comfortable overseeing these different spots, and then create a system that brought the information to me in a concise way where I felt like I was tapped in and I knew exactly what was going on, without taking hours spent in every single department. So that was something I had to quickly learn if I was going to be effective and be a leader in those spaces and be present for them to problem solve with the things that were popping up.
So you just outlined you probably have 100+ people in your organization. How did you get abreast of what was actually going on here? Did you do a listening tour and meet as many of the people you could and ask them what's working, what's not working?
Yeah, so that started out pretty chaotic. My calendar was packed because I was spending with each director, I was spending an hour with everybody, and that adds up quickly until I delegated and started with Ian, my assistant GM, and then finally my DPPs. They would kind of oversee different pods and bring that information to me to make sure everything was running smooth. I met, and he's a mentor to me, Greg Brown, who's the CEO of Motorola. Spent time with him on how to organize meetings better. So we created an executive group, and we go through people, calendar, you should know what the competition's doing, and then what group you oversee. So it's just 5 of us. We get together for about 90 minutes a week, And all of that information just gets funneled up to me. We can ask good questions and get to the bottom of everything. And that has been an absolute game changer for me.
I love that. What a thoughtful and structured way to execute meetings. Because in a lot of organizations, people will complain, saying meetings are a waste of time, but not if it's structured.
Exactly.
And there's actually something you're solving and bringing to the agenda. So thank you for sharing that.
Yeah.
Ryan, your role, one of the biggest days is draft day.
Mm-hmm.
How does one prepare for a draft? How much goes into it? How many variations of if this happens, that happens are actually taking place versus just showing up impromptu and flipping a coin?
Yeah. So there's a lot of preparation. There's a lot of meetings. We have a unique way that we meet. It's long, it's tedious, but it's highly effective. We spend about 10 days and we do about 4 sessions a year where we'll get in the draft room from 7 in the morning and we'll be there to about 6 or 7 at night. And we'll go through player by player. We'll get to know about their background. And you have about 3 to 4 scouts that would write a report on each player that would be on the board. And you go through character first, and then you go through film.
Character first.
Yeah. Yep. And then you go through film and start to put that whole thing together. And through that, you really get the total picture of what this person's all about, from their makeup to projection of how they're going to help us. From a coaching standpoint, like how do the coaches want to work with them? Do they fit our scheme? You got medical, like it just goes on and on. You know everything about this player. And that's about 200 players you do that for. But you rep it out so much that you get really comfortable. And we have become very selective with the type of people we're going to bring into the organization. So you get that filtered down pretty good. And then my analytics group did a great job building a simulator for me that has trades and everything built into it. And I think this year I did the draft about 115 times before the draft actually happened. So
wow, really?
Just from those reps, there weren't many surprises that caught me off guard, because you've repped this thing out so many times and you just feel confident with A, B, C, D, and so on.
That's all that's modeled out. Like if this happens, here's our move.
Yeah.
If that happens, that's our next move.
Yep.
So when it happens, not only have you seen it, but the analytics team is basically saying, hey, this is what we worked on. Here's our move. Wow.
Yeah.
To protect from emotional decision making. It's already been rationalized far in advance.
Yeah, our draft room's boring on draft day because I'm not turning to the doctor and say, hey, are you good with the orthopedic group? No, we've already gone through that. I'm not going to a coach and saying, are you good with this player? Does he fit? Well, we've already had that conversation. So by the time we get to the draft, all that stuff has been ironed out. It's a really good process. It's fun to see someone new come into it and be like there's no drama, there's no nothing. It's pretty smooth.
Are you presenting the overarching draft strategy to the owner, George, or Kevin, the CEO, the coach? Like ultimately when you're saying, hey, I think we've got our if-then scenarios mapped out, is that a formal presentation, or when did this owner, CEO get involved?
Our head coach and I, Matt Eberflus, were in lockstep the whole way. He'll jump in, later in the process. Just we have a lot of information kind of in by that time, so we're going through different scenarios. But we're in lockstep down the stretch, and then when we really feel like the board is solidified, that's when I'll walk through all those scenarios with George and Kevin. And make them aware and allow them to ask, questions, just to kind of see, like, have we done all the homework? Are we prepared? I probably go the extra step with Kevin too. We have those conversations pretty early as well. He likes to kind of hear about different players and what the different options look like for that year. So I keep everybody up to date. So again, on draft day, it's kind of boring for them too. There isn't any big questions or surprises that pop up.
So you don't actually get through draft day exhausted because it's kind of mundane, like you're saying. It's a normal day. I mean, there's pressure of, I'm sure you've got all the if-then scenarios, you've got your preference of which way it goes.
Absolutely.
But it's not like you're stressed out of your mind because you.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct. There's the ideal situation, the preferred way of things playing out that you're hoping for. So that's draining. But in terms of the decision-making process on draft day, that part's pretty stress-free.
Has it ever happened where someone was a perfect fit technically to fill a gap in the team that you needed, but the character wasn't there? They weren't going to be additive to the culture. That you just overrode it and said, it'd be perfect, but I just can't.
Yeah.
It's going to be detrimental to culture.
That's the hardest part of the draft, because I fall in love with talented individuals that are impact players that are gonna change, Sundays for us. But the one thing I've learned fast is when you set a standard of the type of players and people that you're gonna bring in, if you stick to that, you're gonna be right more times than wrong. And you can go to bed at night knowing that player, it has all of the traits that you're looking for to join a team and create a culture. And, when you go back to the interview process, you're talking about culture a lot. You quickly realize culture's people. So you better be very selective with the type of people. You got to have a standard of what they're about. And if you stick to that, it's amazing what the locker room turns into in 2 to 3 years. You can handle adversity. You can handle success. It's a very beautiful thing to watch. That's been the most enjoyable thing about year 3 to me, is seeing the locker room and how they move and how they practice and how they deal with different issues. It's because you were selective with the type of people that you bring in. And we create this Grizzly model. So it's grit, dependability, coachability, and passion for the game. And we want guys that are a 6 and above in all of those spaces.
Great.
Kevin saw that in the draft room, and now from an HR perspective, that's how we hire on the other side as well. So that's all the way through coaching, front office, players, and our business staff as well. And again, if you bring in a bunch of people that have high levels of all of those, you're going to be okay.
Yeah. Chad and I had the pleasure of working with Ted and George on Kevin's CEO hire. And to your point, we interviewed over 50 CEOs, like many hours, but it gets down to where the technical acumen is very nuanced at the top, but the fit with the values, who people really are, what kind of a husband they are, father they are, who they are as a person is more important than anything else. And ultimately, when we had the conversation with Kevin, Chad and I looked at each other like, this is the hire. Yeah. You just know it, you know? And to your point on the player side, it's got to be the same. This person's going to gel here or not.
Exactly. It is. And, like I said, it's really hard because you watch the tape and you see the talent, and it is.
And you're probably going to get blowback in the press,
brutal,
which in our world it doesn't happen on the executive side.
Like, how can you miss that talent? It's like, you don't even know.
Culture matters. But you see it. I mean, we're here at training camp with you, and you can tell the players are having fun. Yeah. They're enjoying their time with one another. Yeah. They get along well, and building that culture is so essential. How do you make sure that you really understand someone's character? Like, what is the evaluation process, whether for a player, whether for a coach, whether for an executive, that you know what you're buying, so to speak? Because some people interview really well, and some people don't interview. I mean, some people might be thinking they're telling the truth about themselves, and they just don't have good self-awareness about themselves.
Yeah. I think it's really digging into all of the touch points that person or player has. So the more coaches, teammates that you can talk to, and I look for the indirect contact. So when we talk about players coming out of college, like, there's so much transferring going on. The coaches are bouncing all over the place. I want to talk to a couple people that have no skin in the game. They're at a different school, but they had that player or were around that player for 2-3 years prior. They usually give you the best information because they're not protecting a draft slot or protecting like someone just getting in the door to have a job. So I try to find those indirect contacts, someone that had been away from that person or player for a year or two. I feel like that's like the best source. And then when you really boil it down to it, I just need to spend a lot of time with that individual. Again, hiring a staff member or a player. I feel like you got to go out to dinner. You got to spend time in the room. You got to play scenario games. The one technique that I found recently was the flip. So basically for like our coordinator interview, we would put up a scoreboard. So you would just have down, distance, time, and that's all you would have. And it's like, I want you to ask us all the questions that you would need to call the next play. Who's having a good game? Who's got the hot hand? What receiver is good? Is there any injuries that happen? What way's the wind going? Where's our kick line that we need to get to for our field goal kicker to kick? So I want to see them process all the information fast, because you give them about 2 minutes to come up with this list of 10 to 15 questions. And it was really cool to do. And it was like a new thing in the coaching space, because all of them were like, I'm going to use that, hiring other people.
Yeah, they should.
Yeah.
Because so many of these decisions are time-sensitive decisions where a lot of people could make the best decision if they had all week to think about it.
Exactly.
Right? Pepsi, you get all year to think of one of your marketing campaigns. Starbucks, you get all year to be able to think about a logo change.
You can't pre-memorize the answer to that question, because you don't know that they're going to bring it up, right?
I can show you my genius with this cool play that I have, or it's about people.
Yeah.
It's about matchups. It's about who's hot today. It's about what's the environment that we're in. So you can just see the different layers of thinking through like that type of questioning. So I felt like that was pretty impactful.
How do you think about building rapport and relationships among your executive team, to getting them to have a really strong culture together?
Yeah, again, it goes back to time spent with each other. We try to do a good job spending, going out to dinner, doing different events, having family members together. Probably saw in Hard Knocks, like the first episode, Coach brought the whole staff to his house for, a little barbecue with the kids. We do that with our players too. We have different events where we bring all the players together, do some things that are uncomfortable, if it's golf or baseball. Again, just that bonding has to be done, and it takes time. And that it's so hard now because there's just not a lot of time to do anything. So you really have to be intentional about it. You got to carve out those moments. Flus and I feel like our relationship's so strong. We golf together in the off season, and try to spend as much quality time just to have just life conversations.
Who's better?
He's better, but I'm closing in.
You're catching up.
Closing in. Yeah. So yeah, the time spent's big.
Mm-hmm. Do you do any offsite or retreats or summits with the team to really make that a special time in the off season, in addition to everything you just said?
We haven't got to the point where we've done a retreat that's been in the conversation with Kevin in terms of the leadership group of the entire organization. We've started a retreat that we go on, work on different projects, different exercises to expand conversation about where we are now, where we need to go. And then that's usually there's a meal and different events to spend time just to get to know each other a little bit better. And that's been really big for us as an organization to pull football and business together. A lot of times it's two different entities.
Disjointed. Yeah.
And we're heading in a really cool position here where everyone's linked together. We have priorities, we have values. You can feel it in the building, and it doesn't feel separate anymore, where it's the two different groups and we work differently, like we're together.
How has it been with Kevin coming in the building? And I think originally you were reporting directly into George, and now you're kind of on part of Kevin's leadership team.
Yep.
How has his presence, his vision, his experience impacted what you're doing on this side of the house? How do you guys work together? Because not actually a lot of NFL teams and professional teams in general don't have that org chart.
Yeah.
It's a little bit unique for this place.
I'll say I'm so blessed to have him here, because it's not just my boss, but it's a mentor. I am very comfortable with telling him, hey, I don't know what to do here. I need some help. I need resources. Who can I go to gain some more knowledge? And his Rolodex is unbelievable. There's 5 names that are coming your way to call. A lot of the times it has to do with like innovation, like trying to get AI going, like where do we need to go, take performance to a different level. Here are more contacts to reach out to. So that's been huge. And we get together once a week, but we're bumping into each other every day, and just giving him updates of what's going on. He gives me updates on the business side. For me to be sitting in the business meetings and getting updates from that executive group has been incredible. Again, it allows us to link together and how we can help each other. If we're bringing in partners, let's create a program where they can come in and, I can sit down with them or one of my staff members and go through a couple of players and the evaluation, just kind of get a peek behind the curtain.
Really, even potential sponsors.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yep. So
I've never heard of that.
That's where that relationship can take an organization to a totally different level. So I'm here for him, and he absolutely has been there for me. And he wants to do whatever he can to put our football team in the best position possible. And he's done that so many ways. I mean, down to new technology. Our new punter and our kicker Cairo asked for a TrackMan, the golf TrackMan.
Yeah.
There's a TrackMan for kickers now.
Oh,
so,
very cool.
It wasn't in the budget. It's a pop-up deal. I get it. But this is going to help give them instant feedback so they can be better. And, we talked through it and he allowed us to get that done. So that partnership has been incredible. And it's deeper than just work too. We do a date night with our wives together, probably once every 2 months when we can make it work. So that bond's strong, and it's been a game changer for me.
That's great.
Yeah.
Is there any area of the business now that you've gotten pretty comfortable with your team, your culture, where you've really put maybe more effort than in past administrations, where you've said, here's an area of the business that I want to over-index or invest in? Because I remember when you were talking about when you were kind of pitching yourself for the role, your vision for the organization.
Yep.
What did you see then, and even since then, where you wanted to leave your touch, in addition to coach, player, coordinators?
I would say it's not like a specific department or tool. It's the relationship piece of it. Knowing really, because of the college atmosphere that our players are coming from, building that trust and helping them gain the mental skill side of things to be successful. So, we hired a mental skills coach who pairs with our clinician, because now they don't get a lot of feedback. They don't get a lot of criticism, because in the college space, I have to re-recruit you or else you're going to leave somewhere else. If someone's ahead of you, you're going to leave and go somewhere else. So the path of least resistance is almost accepted. And then you get trapped in the NFL contract and you might be the number 2 guy. You might have to battle for a spot. You might get drafted high and you have to perform. There's a lot of pressure on you. And they're not equipped with those mental skills as well as I think past draft classes have. So we've really leaned into relationships and building those mental skills part of an athlete so that they can perform at a high level, but also overcome some of the things that they've never been exposed to before. Yeah. So that's been really a priority for me to grow and take to the next level, but it takes time, it takes trust. You got to build relationships to get to a point where someone wants to share those insecurities with you.
Ryan, that brings up such a interesting point. Collegiate players often don't stay with the same team for 4 seasons anymore.
Right.
That has to completely change your dynamic when scouting or looking at college students, because how well does someone know that player? I don't know. They were only with them for 1 season.
Yeah.
That's not a long time. You're also going to have a lot of these players come into professional jobs who don't have big friend circles anymore,
right?
Because they didn't spend 4 years going through the trenches with somebody.
Yep.
They didn't spend 2 years in humility trying to earn the spot, not getting the spot.
Yeah.
They jumped and went elsewhere. How much do those dynamics play into how you look at the next wave of athletes? Do you prioritize those who did stick it out with one place versus jump 3-4 times?
When I first started scouting, a transfer was like a huge red flag, because you were escaping something,
lack of commitment.
There's a commitment issue, loyalty. Now it's just a part of the deal.
Yeah.
So it's shifted the way that we scout too. So we have to have a network of scouting where our scouts are constantly talking to each other, regardless if you're on the East Coast or the West Coast, because we have multiple players that have gone from one side of the country to the other side of the country, and we need to be able to take the information from some of the coaches that they had at one school and pair it up with the other. So that's been a shift that we've had to make in order to make sure we're collecting the right information about character, both football character and personal character. because it does make you feel uncomfortable because touch points are only like 1 year, half a year. It's different. I can't even give too much credit to anyone that stays in one place either, because, maybe it just worked out really well and you found the perfect spot. There's an injury ahead of you and you're off to the races. So it's opened up our perspective, because there's a negative connotation to transferring, and now it's part of business, putting yourself in the best position to be successful. But I do think we have to help develop some of the things that you do get when you stick it out. You battle for a position, that you're coached really, really hard. That's just not happening as much anymore.
Yeah, you might not have as much historical evidence of resilience or dependability or adaptability, which were some of the terms you used earlier that are important to culture. So you've got to find ways of building and growing those in. We'll wrap up, because we know you've got to get back to your day job, which is more than being on a podcast, but thank you. What do you wish you would have known walking into the GM job that you know now? Maybe another way is, what advice would you have for a first-time GM who's stepping into that role?
Yeah, I'll go a very simple route. You have to block out time on your calendar to get your work done. That's to take a breather and just have quiet time. That's to watch tape. That's to think about big picture items, about the future, about where your organization's going, where your roster's going, innovation. You have to physically block out that time on your calendar to work out all of those. So when you walk in and you just expect to find time to do it, there's so much traffic in and out of your room. There's meetings constantly being created, that your day starts and then it ends, and you haven't taken care of yourself or created any time to think or meditate or just catch your breath. And that's been critical for me. And I've been fortunate to have some mentors to give me that advice after I kind of brought up some of the issues that I was having. I was just leaving too many times saying, like, I don't know what I got done today. Like, you put out fires.
I'm not the only one.
Yeah.
I'm glad that you feel that way sometimes too. Yeah.
So that part, structuring my day intentionally, has been really, really important to me.
So on that note, do open door policies even work? I mean, there's so much data that shows that it takes 10 to 20 minutes to get your efficiency back, to get your focus back. You're wanting to be available for your team, but you lose your day. Like, do they work? Are they outdated? What are your thoughts there?
So as long as you're blocking out time to get that work done, you probably noticed walking in my office, I have a slide that goes from green to red. So when that time pops up where I need to lock in and really not get distracted at all, Colleen, my EA, will slide it over to red just to kind of create that buffer for me to dig in and get some things done. Because if I don't, it's choppy and it's hard to get back into the rhythm and get things done. But that also brings up the point of, your morning routine, trying to make sure that you carve that time out where maybe there's not many people in the office and you can really spend those morning hours getting yourself together and being prepared.
How important is physical fitness and eating healthy? You're clearly still very fit and in shape. How important is that to you to perform in the job and stay mentally acute?
It's a big piece of it. I kind of fell off the wagon the first year just because you're trying to survive and you're trying to put all this together. You do feel sluggish. It's the energy, getting up in the morning, getting in, sustaining that all the way through the day it's challenging. So coming up with a routine for your eating, coming up with a routine to get your workouts in. One of the key things for me is Ian and I meet for an hour every day. So we'll throw on 50 pounds of a vest and we'll do our meeting as we walk for 50 minutes so that we're accomplishing our meeting, but also getting a sweat in. We both lost a lot of weight recently, so now we have a run walk that we do. So we talk when we walk, and then we're trying to catch our breath while we're running. So we're on a little program there. But I know for an hour a day, we are getting a workout and we're moving, but also getting our meetings done too. So it's just a little
building
combo
into your day.
Yeah.
50 over 50. That's what the term is. I like it.
You tracking your steps on your watch as well?
Yeah.
Nice.
We're all Garmining
we're wearing
today?
Garmins.
Yeah.
Look at us.
It's a great watch.
My daughter and I recently did one of the tallest zip lines in North America. And afterwards, I looked at my stress score on my Garmin, and I've never had it so high. And I tried to play a cool face the whole time. But I'm telling her, I'm like, Capri, if you don't want to do it, we don't have to do it.
Right.
What I wasn't admitting was, Capri, I really hope you back out because I don't want to do this.
Chad's technically my boss, but he got a Garmin. He's like, tell me about his improvements. I'm like, all right, I got to get one of these. So I get it. And now instead of motivating me by actually giving me a pep talk or something, he'll just send me his VO2 max score.
I'm doing pretty good.
Health, whatever. I'm like, okay.
The sleep piece is important too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You think you have a good sleep and you look down and you're like, I actually didn't sleep that well tonight. So.
I'm telling you, this thing is so helpful in me managing my life. Like I perform so much better because I'll notice like, okay, I need a day off or I need to be thinking differently about something else, or I'm stressed during those activities. Maybe I approach them differently. 7 questions we ask everybody called the 7 Question Blitz. What sports event have you never been to that you would love to attend?
Kentucky Derby.
Yeah. What are you going to wear?
I have no idea. I haven't gone that far.
You haven't gotten that far?
No, hopefully next year. I'm
just
gonna try
love
to go
horses or?
It's just an event that I've always seen on TV. Brett Veach in Kansas City, the gym in Kansas City, is big into horse racing. He kind of got me into it. I'm not all the way there, but I just want to go to the event and just see the whole thing. He got me hooked on F1, so I did the one in Miami.
Which is like always the same weekend as Kentucky Derby.
Yeah, so I did that one, so I'm gonna flip over. And then when I'm retired someday, the Masters is the other one.
Yeah, that's an iconic one.
Yeah.
What 3 people living or historical would you want to go golfing with?
Ozzie Newsome, the old GM of the Ravens. He's one.
Why?
I spent an hour with him at a golf course in Baltimore. I had to go to a dinner, and I was like, I wish I had 4 or 5 hours just going through his journey as a player, but also as a GM, Super Bowl champion, GM with that team and how he built it. I think he did a really good job with setting a culture, drafting the right people, acquiring the right players, but also the relationship side of it. And I think that's missed, is just like how, because you're torn between being detached and making business decisions, but also having empathy. It's that relationship that it's really hard to execute. And I feel like we're doing a good job here, but he's always been someone that I've looked up to that I feel like, from what I hear, did a really good job of that. So that's why on him. Barack Obama just is a leader in a high pressure job, obviously. And then because we're here in Chicago, probably George Halas, just to hear his vision of, where he started with his organization and where did he see it going, and what legacy did he want to leave, and just talk through the Chicago Bears organization.
Yeah, just absolute pioneers for this sport, and just an incredible legacy of family members. So just parenting quality and leadership quality at home, because you meet some people who crush it at work, and that's not always replicated at home.
Right.
You also meet some people who are really great present moms and dads, and they might not be great in their day job. Right? And obviously, he embodied both of those.
Exactly.
What sporting memory? I think I know the answer to this.
Yeah.
It's probably has something to do with that trophy on the wall, but I don't want to lead the witness here.
Yeah.
What sporting memory is most dear in your heart?
Yeah, it's definitely the Super Bowl in Miami. But I'll take it to a little bit deeper. It probably the parade back in Kansas City. COVID hit just after that, but we're so into the sport of football, and it was at that moment that I realized what it did for the city and the fans. And it gives me goosebumps talking about it, but you get on those buses, you're exhausted from partying and hanging out, and then my mind's trying to get ready for the draft and meetings that we have the next day, and that bus turns down Main Street, and you just see the sea of red, and there's people top of every floor of parking garages, every, grown men crying, it's just surreal. The joy that it brings to an entire city. You're like, this has impact on the entire place and how much joy that it brings. And there's a lot of people going through hard times, on Sundays, and the success that you bring to their household on a Sunday where you win or even a Super Bowl, it's like you can change their moods and how they feel about everything that's going on in their life. It's an escape for a little bit to have a ton of pride in what their team's doing, and to do this in Chicago. Like I have visions of that, and can't wait for that to happen.
It's going to be on a scale that few have seen when that happens.
Yep.
What's something about you most people don't know?
You already hit it. It's my YouTube page with 2.7 million.
That's going to turn into more than that after this.
Yeah. That wedding video was a lot of fun and was more popular than I ever thought it was going to be.
It's so fun. When did it gain a lot of momentum? Was it after you got this job, or did it happen a lot earlier than that?
It happened earlier. I think it got to 1 million before anyone knew who I was.
Really? Come on. How cool is that?
Yeah.
Just viral on its own.
Yep.
It's incredible.
It humanizes you so much, and it shows a side of your personality not everyone's going to get to see. Right? They see you in the regal role of a GM making hard decisions for the organization.
Yep.
But there's obviously a really fun, playful, joyful side that is very much you as well.
Yeah. It comes out every once in a while.
Yeah. I love that.
Yep.
If you weren't in your current role and you could not work in sport, what would your job be?
I would be in marketing.
You studied comms, right?
Yeah. When we have, different things going on in the building, just in terms of elevating the brand of the Bears, like I have a creative side that I love, bringing up to the group. And it's a lot of fun for me to kind of tap into the creative side. Like I said, just kind of expand the brand and make it popular and get more eyes from a fan base. I joke all the time with our business group, like, I'll give an idea and be like, all right, I'm gonna go back to football now and just leave. So,
well, we can tell by the dapper sweatshirt you're wearing right now.
Yeah.
Well, it's beautiful, man.
Yeah.
What are some of your professional pet peeves? We all have them, just something that irks us when this takes place in the office.
When people whisper in meetings, it drives me absolutely insane. Like, don't even whisper to me. I just, it's always bothered me. Like, if you're going to say something, just say it loud so everyone can hear it. It creates anxiety for people because it's like, what is this conversation? Like, why do you have to whisper about it? Like, I've always been like, if we're in a meeting or in a place where that's open conversation is accepted and that's what we need, like say it and say it loud, and especially opinions, like get your opinion out there where everyone can hear it, like then it means something. So whispering in a group setting, especially when we're trying to make decisions, it drives me crazy. So
do you equally dislike when someone types a private message on Zoom? Because that's kind of digital whispering. Or are you okay with that because it was not distracting?
I'm fine with that. It's not distracting. Yeah.
And then next time I'm in Chicago, where do I need to eat?
Oh, there's so many spots.
Brian, we got to take you to the restaurant that Chad and I took George and his wife. It was an experience none of us will ever forget.
Oriole is what it was called. Have you been to Oriole?
No. Oriole. How many 25 courses or something?
Really?
It was like a 4-hour experience.
It was an experience, yeah.
I think there might be a little bit of hyperbole in that, but there were a lot of courses.
But it was definitely 4 hours, though. It was 4 or 5 hours. Really.
I just wanted to prove I knew what hyperbole meant. This was my moment here. Ryan, awesome spending time with you. Thank you. I know you've got a busy day, but really enjoyed it.
Me too.
Thanks so much.
Too. Absolutely. Didn't tell anybody. So everyone was in there waiting for us, even our wedding party. And they're like, what is going on? So Katie's sister is the only one that knew. So she said, hey, they're going to be late. And then that's when the video starts. So they actually watch us in like the journey going to the wedding. So it was fun.
And
but I didn't think it was going to
read about this anywhere. She just dreamed it up herself.
I think she saw like a couple examples.
Instagram videos or something.
Yeah.
So your wife's quite the showman then.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yep.
That's really cool.
And you're just a couple of kids at that time, not thinking, hey, one day I'm going to be the GM of a team.
Exactly.
And the whole world's going to watch my wedding video.
Exactly. Yep.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Wow. What a fun experience, man. It makes everyone else's weddings like, wow, I'm a lame husband, man. I just did the traditional walk down the aisle thing.
I should have been more creative with mine. I feel guilty at this point, too.
Totally.
It's everything just for me to do the dance.
Yeah, exactly.